every time we do a geopolitics special, the Illuminati comes up.
You have no idea who's in your phone, who's on your laptop. The secret world is obviously there. I know the names of some secret societies that can't be Googled. They exist.
Have you ever had an offer to join a secret society?
Next question.
Ooh. Have you hung out with Elon Musk?
Yeah, Elon has a concern that none of the others had about multi-planetary survival. Clearly, the most important problem is getting out of the solar system as fast as possible.
Why?
Because we're all gonna die here soon.
And you say that as a scientist.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
There's only one thing I'm doing that changes everything. Gravitational space-time engineering.
A time machine.
Yeah, because otherwise we're trapped.
You think we'll see a nuclear bomb explode in the next 10 years?
You have no idea how much closer we got to that. And by the way, you guys have really good seats with your neighbors to the north.
Ooh.
You're in the middle of a narrative war, an informational war. I think you have no idea how powerful you are. You're the perfect target. So when the world turns on you, that's a very powerful thing. And I've definitely seen coordinated attempts to destroy people.
But I wonder why target podcast hosts.
Are you kidding me? I want you to think about how terrifying what you and I are doing right now actually is. You've lost control over your life. You just don't know it yet.
Do you believe that aliens are present among us?
There's a crazy 1971 document which names American physicists who were supposedly working on UFOs that had been recovered and were real.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is a serious, serious place.
Because of what you've studied with respect to quantum theory, have you ever pondered upon the existence of God?
Yeah.
So what do you think God is?
If I gave you the answer, you wouldn't be happy with it.
Dr. Weinstein, I'm very, very pumped.
Dr. Weinstein, Eric, please. Ranveer, I can't believe I'm finally here. So this is like a huge thrill.
I'm just very happy to be sitting in front of you. I'm going to have a lot of fun in this conversation. I know that. Because we're going to be speaking about aliens, but it's with you.
I see. Not the H-1B kind.
No.
All right. Very good.
Real aliens. We've spoken about this topic a lot on this podcast. And I think the podcast gets criticized a lot because we keep bringing back aliens into these conversations.
Now, criticized by Indians because I keep hearing that Indians don't care about aliens because they only seem to land in the U.S.
No.
Okay.
I think aliens are exploring the Himalayas as well.
I would imagine if they're smart.
Yeah. I've had some military personnel on the show who haven't denied having some secrets about UFOs.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah. So,
because like you know about the situation where the head guy in Israel in the space program claims that we have a base on Mars.
You will have to enlighten us.
Yeah, well, this is something I got totally wrong. I thought that this was just a nonsense topic. I thought it was like Sasquatch or the Yeti, and it turns out I was massively wrong. This is some super serious, weird, real thing. And we've only been exploring it for a couple of years in the U.S. I assume you know about the New York Times article on this.
You'll have to enlighten us.
So the New York Times sort of broke the ice and allowed everyone to discuss aliens when before it had been a forbidden topic. And what seems to be the case is that an enormous number of admirals and senators and cabinet level people believe that there's a secret program called the Legacy Program that is focused on aliens, recovered craft, secret physics, and nobody can figure out what's going on because we don't have any hard evidence that any of this is real, but it's way too much circumstantial evidence to ignore.
Secret physics.
Yeah.
Go on.
Look, I don't know if we're drunk enough to have this conversation.
Would you like a drink?
You know, it's funny. There's this guy, Joe Rogan, who's seen as the Ranveer of America.
Yeah. He's my distant guru.
Yeah. Well, he He and I have almost always, I think, had a drink during the last hour of our conversation. Let's start slow.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's a crazy 1971 document out of the Australian Intelligence Service, which details all of these, it names names because it wasn't intended to be seen, of American universities and American physicists who were supposedly working on anti-gravity programs based on the idea that UFOs had been recovered and were real.
As in they'd extracted information from the parts of the UFOs they'd
The
found.
way the document puts it, it says there's no reason to suddenly put all this energy and some of our best people on an anti-gravity program, or what was known as a gravity shielding program, if there wasn't some indication that there was something to do there, because general relativity, which is our theory of gravity, doesn't support thinking in these terms. It's not beckoning us to put this kind of manpower. So the Australians figured out for the Americans to be putting this amount of energy into what was technically called the golden age of general relativity must mean that this is really a UFO program.
I'd also love for you to very quickly introduce yourself and what you've studied.
Okay. So I'm a mathematician. I was a postdoc at MIT, PhD from Harvard, and I specialized in the geometry that is underneath both general relativity and the model of quantum field theory that we call the Standard Model. So those are two basic models that give us an understanding of the world. And I studied the geometry, which was the language in which these two theories were formulated.
Explain it to me like I'm 5.
There is no explanation as if you're 5. You're a wave. You're a wave in a medium. And if you think about how different waves sound different, depending on, let's say, what instrument you have a wave on a string. So if it's a violin versus a sarangi, the bridge causes the string to vibrate in a way that imparts a different sound. So under all circumstances, everything that you see in this room is not actually a solid object. It's actually a wave, and the geometry of those waves determines what reality is. Okay, so we're in India. We should talk about the tabla set with the tabla and the bayan. And when you move the heel of your hand on the bayan, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, you change the sorts of waves that can exist on the drum head. And so those different kinds of waves under all circumstances determine the particles that we sort of see, and why, we have different characters of the waves in my ice in the cup. So getting the geometry of these waves right unleashes power. Or if you think about the electromagnetic spectrum, how is it that we can receive a picture of our cousin in Singapore on our phone? It's the electromagnetic vibrations, in the same way that we can hear each other through a different medium, which is the vibration of sound that reaches our ears. So understanding different media, different geometries, different vibrational patterns is the stuff of physics. And whoever can do that the best gets to unlock the powers of the universe. So it's sort of a race to understand how waves behave in media to see who wins.
Okay, I'm trying to oversimplify everything you're saying. That's where my muscle's working.
So let's put it this way. Do you want to visit the stars?
Yes.
Okay. How are you going to get out of here? No one knows.
Like a wormhole.
Okay. Well, exactly. That's really good. So for example, if you imagine that the hole in my handle for this cup presents a wormhole connecting the top here to the bottom, and a way to go from the bottom of the cup to the top, how do you do that in space-time so that you can choose a destination from your telescope and go there? We don't know that that's possible. But if that is possible, you'd get there through geometry and physics.
Okay. Let me get this straight. And I'll link it to aliens, which is the theme of this conversation.
All right.
So the stuff you've studied contains the theory behind sci-fi concepts like wormholes,
Exactly.
time travel,
Exactly.
these kind of things.
That's it.
You've studied the theory of these.
I'm trying to do the grown-up version, which is less fun, but if it ever works, hugely more important than the Star Trek, Star Wars version.
A lot of these ideas are currently not practical because of scientific and engineering limitation. But
Scientific is far more disturbing because you can engineer the hell out of a problem, but if science says you can't go faster than the speed of light and the nearest star is light years away, you're practically not going to get there ever. So I've said, imagine that the universe is set up so that the solar system is an escape room, and we're all going to die unless somebody can figure out how to get out of here before the bombs go off. So no one knows how to get out of it. And what's worse, Albert Einstein is sort of our jailer. He's running the prison, and we can't leave until we figure out how to defeat and trick the jailer. So that was what I was trying to do. I'm trying to jailbreak the universe so we don't die here and we get to visit the stars.
okay. The next question's a little elaborate and it's related to aliens.
Perfect.
Hypothetically, if they're even like 500 years older than us,
Yeah.
it's likely that they're scientifically much more advanced than us. And if aliens do exist and they visit the Earth, then that means that they have cracked this wormhole problem that you have understood the theory of because of what you've studied.
Okay.
Am I right in saying this?
I'm going to look, just to take issue and play some tennis back and forth.
Sure.
What if the idea is that we have to play tic-tac-toe, and one person is 500 years of tic-tac-toe theory ahead of the other one? It doesn't matter. Once you can play perfect tic-tac-toe, it doesn't matter how many hundreds of years somebody is in front of you. I think we're almost at the end of physics. We've almost cracked the code.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that this is much more like tic-tac-toe than it is like chess.
So you think human beings have almost reached the end of physics?
Correct.
Wow.
And people always make fun of that because people have always thought they were at the end, right? But at some point, the last landmass was found. So it was found off the north coast of Siberia about 100 years ago. Nobody's ever found a major landmass on Earth after that. Now, you could always say, oh, you think you found the last landmass on Earth. No, we really did. It came to an end. Or checkers was solved as a puzzle. You can get a computer to play perfect checkers. I think we're at the end of the rules of physical chess.
So what's not discovered yet, or what's not understood?
Well, for example, there's two things that we all sort of agree are out there called dark energy and dark matter. And we can detect, for example, that there are things that are sort of planet-like that don't give off any light. But we can see that the objects behind them are sending light around them, and the light is distorted everywhere, even though we don't see the object in the center. So this really freaked us out.
Okay. And these are out there in outer space.
Yeah, like, for example, imagine I started to see, they're in outer space. Imagine I started to see 13 different copies of Ranveer. That would be weird, because why should I get 13 copies of you? Well, it's a lot like being in a hall of mirrors where something is taking the light from you and spreading it and taking the same object and allowing the light to come to me in different ways.
What did you say? Dark matter and?
Dark energy.
Dark energy. So these are two topics we've not understood in physics yet.
Yeah.
And how big are these things that you said are like planets?
Well, they're huge.
They're the size of planets?
Oh my gosh, they're the size of galaxies. They're absolutely enormous clumps of matter.
We don't know what they are.
Right, because they don't have we can't see them. They're dark. They don't scatter light.
Why is it important that we understand what they are?
Because they make up most of our universe.
Oh.
Like, we don't know whether there are beings that are made out of dark matter. Like, if there were a dark matter being in this room, yeah, I'm not doing a good job of telling you just how crazy this is. Right now, it's night here in Bombay, in Mumbai. Yeah, and the sun is on the other side of the planet. And it's sending a kind of almost dark matter called neutrinos screaming through planet Earth and penetrating your body. You're being shot through with billions of neutrinos all the time. And the only reason, Ranveer, that you don't die is that the planet that's failing to shield you has the same characteristics as your body. So it's not only passing through the planet, which should have shielded you, but it's passing through your body and doing almost no damage. Once in a blue moon, one of these neutrinos interacts with your DNA and mutates you. But that's a kind of almost dark matter, nearly dark matter, that we understand pretty well now. Not perfectly. It's still kind of mysterious. But we only found it out like less than 100 years ago.
How did we find it out?
It's very interesting because if you have radioactive decay, you have like a neutron, and a neutron disintegrates at some point. It'll just sit there, and then suddenly it'll spontaneously turn into a proton and shoot out an electron. And there wasn't enough energy in the proton together with the electron to represent the energy that was in the neutron. So, okay, things have to add up. It's sort of like discovering that somebody is stealing money from you in your business. There was a kind of money going in, and then there was money going out, and there wasn't enough money going out to match the money coming in, so somebody was skimming off the top. And that turned out to be the neutrino, technically the anti-electron neutrino.
So a lot of mathematical equations that were explaining reality to us were indicating that a neutrino or this dark matter.
Something was carrying away energy and not telling us it was there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? So it's like finding out that you've got a thief.
Gotcha. And nobody knows the exact nature of what this is. Dark matter.
Well, we sort of know more and more, but we don't know enough. So imagine you're trying to discover the criminal organization, but you can't see it directly. So you discover it by its effects on the visible world. How does it distort the visible world? So there has to be, if you have a chore in your organization, you figure it out because you can't account for some number of receipts, invoices that don't match invoices out.
I have to take you back to the occult a little bit.
Please.
You said that maybe beings could be made of the same material, like living beings.
Yeah.
Over to you. What do you mean?
Well, could these things form atoms? Not our kinds of atoms, because our kinds of atoms scatter light, so you can see them. Right? The only reason you and I can see each other is that you and I stop and reflect photons when they hit us. So maybe there are dark photons. There's like dark light that falls on dark matter. Maybe there are dark planets. You have no idea what this stuff could be.
So within our universe, these objects and this material is hiding secrets in plain sight.
And there's more of it than there is of our stuff. Like if you and I are made of luminous matter, there's more of the dark matter than there is the luminous matter. So we're the minority. The dark stuff is the majority.
Do you think alien life would have figured out what the dark stuff is?
I think we're about to figure out what the dark stuff is.
When do you think we'll figure it out?
Anytime.
Anytime now?
Look, man, I think that what is about to happen in general is so profound that none of us are ready for it. I think that we have led our lives in a very calm, very still, stagnant way, and we've confused the little ripples in the lake of our time, the fluctuations in the economy, the minor border conflicts, all these sorts of things. We've called them wars. We've called these, depressions. No. The world is going to get wildly chaotic, and it's about to happen.
Why?
Well, you can look at it. First of all, the AI is certainly it's the most profound thing that may have ever been invented. Not the version that we have, but what's coming. The post-World War II era had an order. largely enforced by the United States, and the United States wants to get out of the world policeman business under Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is probably the most consequential president of my lifetime.
Really?
Yeah. We have got multiple thermonuclear countries with very advanced scientific and engineering programs. So multipolar conflict is very different than two-player games like the Soviet Union versus the US. Yeah, think about the early 20th century with the level of craziness and its scientific advance and war and conflict and disease and opportunity. Now put that on steroids with modern toys. That's what's coming.
Is any good coming as well?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Scientific discovery.
Oh my gosh.
What's happening in the world of science right now because of the advancements in AI? Like, has AI helped further scientific discovery?
Well, the big one is in protein. Alphafold, which is this program that... So proteins, we think about it like, I need more protein in my diet, so I'm going to order the chicken.
Yeah.
No, protein is like tiny machines. So you imagine a Xerox photocopier. You imagine a pair of scissors. You imagine a zipper. All of these things are proteins. So they're microscopic machines. And our DNA makes machines. So that's sort of what life is. Life is all about, you're a library of plans for different tiny machines called proteins. We didn't know how a piece of code would work when it was turned into a protein or a tiny machine. And I think the first great scientific advance was Alphafold, to me, was Alphafold, which was a program that figured out what the shape of a protein was likely to be just from the plans for the protein, which is technically called its primary sequence.
Okay, I'll have to rewind a little bit just to clear my concepts.
Sure.
In India, when we're taught about proteins for the first time in school, we're taught that they're the building blocks of life. Cells are the building blocks of life, and then proteins build up your body.
Yeah, so what we would usually say is that there are 4 layers of life. You would have anatomy, physiology, histology, and cytology. Histology would be tissue level. Cytology would be cell level. Then the cell has these sort of subunits, like the Golgi apparatus, the nucleus, the mitochondria. But if you go into the nucleus or into the mitochondria, then you have this gorgeous nucleic acid, which is like the blueprints for making machines.
These are proteins?
No, the proteins are, you translate that code that's stored in the DNA or the RNA into machines made of amino acids using something called a ribosome. So a ribosome is a machine that reads code and builds strings of amino acids. And then when you allow those strings of amino acids to crumple up on themselves, they turn into a machine. And that was so mind-blowing that nobody knew what machine was going to result. Imagine you had a sequence of pearls. So you have 20 different kinds of pearls and you put them on a string. And then you let go and it becomes a Lamborghini. Right? Or you let them go and it becomes an electric guitar. So you're looking at a string of pearls, that is a string of amino acids. You don't know what it's going to do when you let it go.
Is it like biological 3D printing?
Yeah.
This is what we're getting towards.
I love that. Yes. I wish I had thought of that.
You're saying that we've understood more about this biological 3D printing that happens inside our own bodies.
I'm saying our AI has started to figure this out and it can't explain it to us.
The AI has started to figure this out.
That's right.
But human scientists didn't.
We didn't know how to do it. It's so hard.
So what will this lead to for the average everyday human? How does it change my kids' lives?
Oh my God. You have kids?
No, I don't.
Aha!
But I will one day.
Okay. God willing. So what kind of drugs are we going to give them to protect them against viruses? How are we going to protect them against bacteria? Do you want your kids to be more intelligent than the DNA in you would code for. Maybe you have an enemy that you want to destroy, and their cell has particular surface proteins on it, and you've got a map so you could release your own biological weapon. I mean, it's just a tool that can do anything. Have you ever tried Miraculin?
No.
There's a thing called the miracle berry, and if you eat it,
Sweet.
yeah.
Gotcha. Like it makes every flavor sweet.
Well, it makes sour things sweet. So it binds to the sweet receptors on your tongue. And then if you eat something sour, like, I don't know, vinegar or yogurt or a lemon, you can just eat a lemon like it's candy.
Yeah.
Well, this is about the miracle of proteins, right? And so we call it flavor tripping, as if it's an LSD experience, but it's a harmless thing to do to your tongue. That thing could be engineered so that you could take any flavor that you like and turn it into another flavor.
So did human beings not understand this science of proteins completely because it's too complex?
It's just too hard.
It's too many factors.
That's right.
And AI was able to do it.
Yeah, AI did it without understanding it.
And this happened recently?
Yeah, within the last several years.
Gotcha. So, and it's going to lead us to a future where there's a countless number of inventions because of this.
Look, now we're going to get to the point where we can start inventing tiny nanomachines to do anything.
How far are we from that?
I don't know, and it's terrifying and wonderful.
In the next 5 years?
Maybe it's happening now.
Nanobots.
Right.
Like for the sake of your body's health, to collect data about your body.
Or maybe there's an evil genius holed up in an island somewhere who's going to kill us all. I don't know. My point is, it's just power.
Gotcha. You're the MD for the Thiel Foundation, right?
I am currently a consultant to it. I was.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you hang out?
Peter's a good friend.
Yeah, you hang out with Peter Thiel?
He's a good friend.
What do you guys talk about when you all hang out?
Oh my God. Well, here's the thing I can say, because I'm in India, and this will never get back to Peter. Peter is the most fun. I have laughed harder with Peter than with about anyone else, and nobody believes this because they think of him as very cerebral.
Yeah.
But he's just incredibly broad. He's a person that no one understands. They think of him as an arch capitalist, but he'll very often say, Eric, I think the Marxist perspective is the correct one on this. Like, just totally surprising as a human being. So he's one of the smartest people I've ever encountered. We can talk about almost anything.
Where does he spend most of his time?
Depends what you mean. Sometimes it's on science. Sometimes it's on religion. Sometimes it's markets.
Geographically, where does he
Los
spend?
Angeles,
Okay.
London, Miami, places I won't tell you about.
Fair.
Yeah.
And do you guys ever have conversations like this about the near future? Do you all ever talk about aliens?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, all the time.
All the time.
Well, anything that's hot. Look, Peter's got his finger on the pulse. What he wants to know is what's going to go now? What's going to go in 5 years? What's going to go in 25 years? Which kernel of popcorn is ready to pop? And how far is each kernel? So he's mapping at all different time scales.
How about you, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Like, you have so much data in your head. Like, I could have made this a geopolitical conversation. I could have made this entirely about science. Yet I choose to talk about topics like aliens.
Well, wherever you want to go. How do you do this show, Ranveer?
I think that with people like yourself, the strangest questions about reality, questions related to the edges of reality, that's what brings out the truth of that human being.
Sure, but if I asked you, can we talk about Bollywood? You'd say, sure, let's go. Then if I asked you about travel, you'd tell me about your last several trips. If I asked you about dating in India, you'd talk about courtship. If I asked you about family, you'd talk about duty and history. Look, we're all very broad, and we get famous for, if anything at all, one or two topics, and we're stuck talking about that topic over and over again. So let's go. Where do you want to go, man? Anything.
How bored do you get when people ask you about Jeffrey Epstein?
Depends. Do they have a new angle? Jeffrey Epstein's just coming to India.
Ooh.
Right? And you're going to have all sorts of crazy things where everyone who's important at a global level is going to end up attached to Jeffrey Epstein in one way or another. Because he was interacting with major institutions. He was interacting with the Trilateral Commission. He was interacting with the Council on Foreign Relations. He was interacting with the U.S., the British royal family, science. So anybody who's interacting with all these organizations, everybody's going to show up in his email.
I feel like every time you're on a podcast, the podcast host always preps this one question for you.
Well, whatever. But you haven't asked one yet.
I don't want to go there.
I love you.
I mean, I'm so bored of like hearing about this topic from you when there's so many other cool things.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. We just don't know what Jeffrey Epstein is, like dark matter, dark energy. Nobody knows what it is, and it's just sitting there distorting everything around it. Let's go somewhere else.
Okay. Back to UFOs.
Yeah.
That was the topic we planned for when we were outside.
Okay.
You said something about a New York Times article.
Yeah.
What was the New York Times
I think
article?
2017, the New York Times has an article, and it indicates that there's much more going on with UFOs. And I think it may have published 3 videos purported to be alien craft. The Go Fast, Gimbal, and I forget what the other one was, Tic Tac. So now there are all these videos. Nobody knows if they're real, if they're fake, what's going on. We can't get straight answers. And, I'm going to just say very clearly, there's an enormous USAP, which is an unacknowledged special access program that has to do with UFOs. And people seem to call it the Legacy Program.
It's built by who?
We don't know.
It just exists.
Well, that's the thing. It's an unacknowledged special access program. So a special access program is a secret program. An unacknowledged... This is going to get really ridiculous.
That's fine. Ridiculous conversations are the most fun.
Okay. So let's talk about levels of secretness from a silly perspective.
From a silly perspective. Go on.
All right. So you ever hear this thing where somebody says, that sounds like a conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
Okay. This shows you how ridiculous that is as a frame. First of all, we have something called a special access program, which is a conspiracy of some kind. It's known to exist in the U.S. So please spare me the claim that you sound like a conspiracy, because we have a category for conspiracies called special access programs that you can look up. In that category, there's a smaller category called unacknowledged special access programs, which are special access programs that are so secret that we won't even let you know that they exist. It's not that we have one and we won't tell you what's in it. We won't even tell you that we have that one. Then there is waived special access, unacknowledged special access programs, which means that they don't have to report except to a tiny group of people that the unacknowledged special access program even exists. And then we have a waived and bigoted unacknowledged special access. So these are the levels of conspiracy that we know exist.
Where is all this information available?
Look up waived and bigoted unacknowledged special access programs, and you can find it, because the category of conspiracies is not a conspiracy. By presidential orders or law, this stuff is out in the open. The category.
The federal government in the U.S. releases...
U.S. federal government.
Gotcha.
So look up USAP and waived and bigoted, where bigoted means that there's a special list of people, and if you're not on the list, you can't even know a thing.
Could you give us a few examples of these?
No.
I mean, based on whatever's out there already.
So, in the middle 1970s, we found out that there were secret programs in the government that, for example, targeted Americans. So there was something called COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO was a secret program that was discovered by a group of people who broke into the FBI's office outside of Philadelphia in 1971 during the Super Bowl. And they stole some documents, and they had this word on the top of the documents that nobody knew. COINTELPRO. And so they asked, okay, well, what does this word mean? So these are thieves. They steal the documents. And the Freedom of Information Act forced the government to say it meant counterintelligence program. And it was a dirty tricks program where we tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself.
But how do you get someone to kill themselves?
Well, you write to them and say, all of your philandering with women is going to come out and you're going to be disgraced as a man of the cloth. We took a woman named Jean Seberg, who was a famous actress in Hollywood, and we made her life hell by accusing her. We planted a story in the Los Angeles Times. So just try to imagine this. The FBI of the United States plants a story with a journalist named Joyce Haber in the Los Angeles Times that one of Hollywood's leading actresses is sleeping with a member of the Black Panthers militant African-American group against the knowledge of her husband. And so she's pregnant. She's so stressed out from this. Like, you get disgraced in the world and your life is turned upside down. And she miscarries her child. And then she keeps trying to kill herself every year on the anniversary of her child's miscarriage, and finally succeeds just when the FBI is forced to reveal, yeah, we did that. We planted stories against our own citizens and drove them to madness and suicide. So we found out all of this during hearings called the Church and Pike hearings in the mid-1970s, where we found out, have you ever heard about the heart attack gun?
No.
We developed a gun where instead of a bullet, you'd shoot a tiny pin of a dart into somebody with some kind of poison that would induce them to have a heart attack. And I think that the little pin would dissolve. So, we've been up to crazy things. And we know that we do these things, and we know which programs are allowed to do these things.
There's two words that we use for all this in India.
Tell me.
Deep state. Every time we do a geopolitics special in India, the deep state comes up. And the narrative is that a lot of the key decisions of the American government are decided upon by the deep state.
Yeah, they are.
What is the deep state according to an American?
Well, there's two concepts. I mean, this is good. There are two concepts of the deep state. One is the deep state is the permanent bureaucratic class, the people who don't move during an election. So when there's a new occupant of the White House, the deep state stays in its job. So these are people who basically are career federal employees. That's the unsexy part of the deep state. The sexy part of the deep state is the massive structure that is not explained to the American public or to the world. And so these are all the three-letter agencies: the NSA, CIA, FBI, Geospatial Intelligence, Department of Homeland Security, all of the secret squirrel apparatus.
So an aspect of the deep state is the top-level bureaucracy in America.
That's one half of it.
Yeah, and there's another part which is unexplained.
Well, which doesn't want to be known.
You know what we call that in India? The Illuminati.
Yeah. Well, we don't know what it is. Nobody exactly knows what it is.
Who's more powerful, the American president or the deep state collectively?
You're seeing that battle fought right now.
This is the first president who's probably more powerful than the deep state?
The way I read it is this is the first president who came from outside the system.
There's a political system in America and you have to climb the ranks in order to eventually become the president.
There's a secret political system in America.
A secret political system.
Yeah. I mean, you can figure out that it's there. It's not that hard. But we pretend that anybody can become president. And we have these primary elections, which aren't really elections. They're fake in a very strong sense.
Where the Democratic and the Republican candidate is decided.
That's right. But it's really sort of decided by the party. It's not decided by the election, but we pretend to have an election. And that's how Donald Trump came through, is that they were pretending to hold a primary. But look, Donald Trump is the first person to become president with no previous history in government or military. Full stop. We've never had somebody come in from outside. And since Millard Fillmore, we haven't had anyone who is neither a Democrat nor a Republican. So in other words, the system always has one candidate from each of two parties. That person always is a known quantity. The party really selects who the candidate will be in the general. And that way, we have continuity. And Donald Trump is not continuous. He's an anomaly. He's the most unusual president and most unusual politician we've ever had.
You think he's the kind of guy who doesn't listen to the deep state?
Oh, he better listen to the deep state, but he's not necessarily going to go along with it. I mean, you have to remember that there were 2 attempts that we know of on his life. And we don't really understand. One of those is both of those are super suspicious, in my opinion.
Modern day conspiracy theory.
No.
Modern day truth?
No, we know something about this. What are the odds that one of the people who was trying to kill him was going to be like a construction worker wandering around Afghanistan looking for freedom fighters to send to Ukraine? That's not really a normal occupation, Ranveer. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Gotcha. How do we reach the deep state? We reach the Illuminati.
Yeah, sure. So who's part of it?
Yeah.
We don't know who is in these secret, but I know that there are secret societies. So you have to realize that, the Bohemian Grove was a secret society. I know the names of some secret societies that can't be Googled. So they exist.
Have you ever had an offer to join a secret society?
Next question.
Ooh. Okay.
How do you think Israel pulled off this pager attack on Hezbollah, right? So clearly, there are entire fake organizations providing, support for cell phones and walkie-talkies and things like this. So do you know who's written all of the software in your phone? Do you know whose control it's under? When you have a laptop, is there a plastic shutter over the camera lens? The little light that tells you whether it's on or off, is that hardwired so that you know when it's on or off, or can that be deactivated by software? You have no idea who's in your phone, who's on your laptop. You don't know probably who's sniffing packets on your network at the office. Look, the secret world is obviously there. And getting people to constantly feel embarrassed about wondering about it is fascinating.
I'm trying to think of a shepherd.
Yeah.
A shepherd, makes sheeps go in the direction that he wishes. So if we compare the secret society members to shepherds, where are they trying to take human society?
Well, for example, they tried to take Europe towards the United States of Europe in order to stop war in the European theater after World War II.
The EU.
Yeah, the EU was a very light political confederation. But the more important confederation was the euro. That was a hard currency, that was a real currency. So we allowed the states of the EU and those using the euro to issue their own debt, but we wouldn't allow them to print their own currency. That meant we allowed them to get into trouble, but we didn't give them the means of getting out of it if they got into trouble. And the hope was that we were going to force them against their will into a political union called the United States of Europe.
Keeping in mind that shepherd example again, what's the underlying will of the shepherd in this case? Like, what do these secret societies want?
Good things and bad things. One thing they want is that they don't like certain kinds of war.
They don't like certain kinds of war.
Right.
For example?
Well, so we're sitting here in Bombay. If there was a shooting war in which Bombay, New York, London, Berlin, Moscow, and Peking were all involved with hypersonic missiles raining down on, some with thermonuclear weapons, some with biological weapons. That's bad for everybody. But they like some wars. They like wars that are far away, where they don't get hurt, where they know that you're going to have a certain probability of something happening because they can sell into that.
There's money to be made of certain kinds of war.
If you know that something is going to happen, right, there's always money to be made in rebuilding a place. So, anytime there's a conflict, the question is, well, we need to get together a multilateral organization to rebuild X. Or we have to get arms to the freedom fighters that we support. All of these things are knowable events. So here's a simple rubric. If some group can know the future before it happens, they can always make money knowing that. And if they can make the future, then they always know the future, then they can always make money. So that's the simplest rubric. If you want to figure out, is there an Illuminati, which is a terrible term for a serious concept? It's the people who know the future because they're making the future so they can profit on the future.
Do you think there are occult elements associated with the Illuminati?
Of course.
There are.
Yeah. I mean, these rituals, in part, what is the purpose of ritual? To bond people together. So, for example, if you and I go hunting together and we do something a little bit over the line, like we take down some big game with enormous rifles, we'll feel bonded to each other. We took life together, Or if, for example, we hold some unbelievably over-the-top party like Burning Man, right? Burning Man's a wonderful example of something which is basically the occult.
Really?
Yeah, it's a visual orgy. You've never been?
No.
Oh, man, you should come. I've been once. But you've never seen anything like it. So, in part, just understanding that, there are always going to be bacchanals and Dionysian feasts, and these things, are always going to then have a sort of edgy, pseudo-religious cult-like feature to them.
So this particular group which is in charge of the world right now.
Don't say it like that, because there are multiple groups.
Some of the most powerful of these groups.
Right.
How long do you think they've been around?
Different. I mean, I know one that's been around, I think, since the 50s.
Okay.
So I can say what its founding is,
Are there any that have been around for like hundreds of years?
Undoubtedly.
Thousands?
We don't know.
Okay.
I mean, look, the Catholic Church has been around for a very long time. You can look at all of its different offshoots. They're the lay societies, they're the priestly orders, the monastic orders. So the Catholic Church is an excellent example of something that we know has been there for a very long time.
These powerful groups today, do they decide who becomes famous and who becomes rich?
Sometimes. Somewhat.
In some cases.
Yeah.
Which musicians get quick success?
I should ask you, Ranveer. You
Sure.
seem to be like the biggest of the podcasters. Were you organic?
Yes.
How do we know?
Uh,
How do we know that there wasn't a secret meeting in Hyderabad that decided to put you on top
I
of
wish.
the YouTube pile?
I feel like the Illuminati may not be as active in India because I've never had an offer to join a secret society.
Really?
Yeah.
But if you were a member of a secret society, wouldn't you say exactly that?
I would,
Yes.
but I'm also super vulnerable with my audience. So
But wouldn't that be like you're this clean, fresh-faced guy?
I'm the ideal candidate.
Yeah. Right? So in other words, what I'm drawing you into is it's a no-win situation. If you deny that you're part of it, then clearly you're part of it because that's what you would say. So I'm trying to be responsible and hit a middle road. Yes, these societies exist. They may be less powerful than you'd think. I don't think that there's one. They've been around for different lengths of time. Sometimes they have a fearsome reputation. They can't actually do anything. Sometimes you've never heard of them and they're incredibly powerful.
You know, this is one of the most nuanced explanations of the Illuminati that I've heard. I love this topic.
Well, because we know it's out there. And it's not one thing.
Do you think they like Joe Rogan?
It's a really good question. I would say you've seen suddenly, look, one of the things that's fascinating is that the world will suddenly turn on an individual. I've had this happen. So I have a hate community that follows me around. And everything I do, all they do is say, my God, this is the worst person on earth. Why does anyone listen to him? Right? Is that organic? Is it partially organic? I don't know. They seem to have a lot of time on their hands and they're very, very motivated. So Joe has been canceled multiple times and it's just never worked. So when the world turns on you, that's a very powerful thing. And I've definitely seen coordinated attempts to destroy people. I don't know if you know about journalist.
I don't know, but I feel like it happened to me this year. So
What?
I feel like this is exactly what happened this year. It was a coordinated situation.
Yeah. So this is the thing, is that you do something wrong and then the response is totally exaggerated.
That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been through that. Right.
And we're not the first or the last people to go through this.
And you'll go through it multiple times. You'll come to understand that you cannot control that you are a character in other people's stories.
But I wonder why target podcast hosts.
Are you kidding me?
Because they shape opinion?
I want you to think about how terrifying what you and I are doing right now actually is. We're having a conversation somewhere in Bombay where nobody can control what it is that we're saying. And when you hit send, it gets published on a channel. Your YouTube channel is over 10 million. Wouldn't you think that would be scary to anybody trying to direct a story? I think you have no idea how powerful you are, Ranveer. Yeah, you're the perfect target. Joe is the perfect target. Everybody who gets to this position. Yeah, none of these people have figured out just how powerful they are. As soon as you start trying to tell a story that is different from an official story or different from one of these groups that I don't love using the word Illuminati, but you've chosen it. Yeah, suddenly your life will go wrong.
You know, when you play like a video game, there's side quests, but then there's also main quests.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like some of the main quests for key members of these secret societies are related to the world of geopolitics.
Yeah.
Because effectively, there's a lot of money to be made from global conflict because of everything you explained. And I also feel that to specifically answer that question about why Joe Rogan is targeted or why I got targeted this year, I personally feel it's because I went a little too deep into the world of geopolitics.
I think that's probably true. And the longer you stay in this thing, the more times you will be canceled.
It's a bullet you need to be willing to bite.
You've lost control over your life. You just don't know it yet. But you also have a measure of control that they don't control yet. So right now, you're in the middle of a narrative war, an informational war. And you're a leading player. And mostly, to be entirely honest, you're not bothering anybody.
How does one bother the world order?
Well, there's an old quote, very beautiful. I think the guy's name is French theorist, maybe Renan, which is, a nation is defined to be a group of people who have agreed to forget something in common.
Wow.
So what has India agreed to forget? Right? So when Gandhi chose Hindi, he forgot the South. Right? So you travel in Tamil Nadu or Kerala, and those people say, I don't really know Hindi. They could learn it. They don't want to. Maybe the idea is that we chose to forget Hindustan because the Hindu nature of India was not part of the sort of plan in the late 40s. It was supposed to be a secular, multicultural society which didn't have a Hindu substrate. So these are like the dangerous things that you could start talking about. You could start talking about communalism. You could start talking about language. You could start talking about inequality, corruption. You could start talking about the fact that very powerful people are suddenly targeted and their names turned to mud overnight. And you could get really interested in how the press works. Yeah. I mean, look, if you want to cause trouble in India, let me know. I'll tell you how to do it. But I'm going to get myself the heck out of the country before you start.
I meant causing trouble on a global level.
Yeah, well, but India's a much more powerful player on a global level than she likes to admit. If you want to do it on a global level, then the first thing you have to do is you have to connect to UK podcasts, US podcasts. What are the podcasts in our network? Like, I mean, look, it's a little bit odd that I'm doing this podcast and I've done 5 Indian podcasts. It's crazy that we aren't more networked, and it's dangerous that we aren't more networked. We need to know each other. This is our first time, the first day that you and I have met. I mean, we've interacted before, but my feeling is that you essentially live in an ecosystem that my friends are unaware of.
Good to hear an opinion from another part of this earth. Because we hear a lot of opinions by Indian people about the Illuminati, about the deep state. Love hearing about, something like Trump from an American. And then Trump from a very objective third-person lens. I think people get very passionate when they speak about Trump nowadays. American citizens. Everyone's like very divided on their opinions about him.
I find it very strange how people treat this, by the way.
The Trump conversation?
Yeah. I mean, so let me throw something to you and tell me what you think of this theory. Sure. I think that we were dominated in many ways by mid-20th century idealisms in many of the major countries. So the U.S. idealism was built around the New Deal and something called the Great Society, programs of Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s. Turkish society was built around Ataturk's theory of the secular Muslim state that is the successor to the Ottoman Empire. India was built around Nehru and Gandhi and this kind of secular country that we were just discussing. Israel was built around David Ben-Gurion and the Labor Party and this sort of narrative of a people for a land with land without a people. And somehow all of these narratives are being repudiated at the same moment. Modi is in some sense a repudiation of the founding idealisms in the late 40s. Erdogan is the same thing to Ataturk. Trump is undoing the sort of great society idealism of Johnson. I think that this is a global phenomenon. We're all experiencing it locally. So we're getting angry at Trump for the same reason that we're getting angry at Erdogan, for the same reason we're getting angry at Modi. And we're not noticing that it's happening globally. What do you think?
There's a shepherd making the sheep move in a certain direction.
Or that it's organic and emergent. Maybe the idea is that all of those idealisms were overreach.
But then why is it happening at the same time?
Because of the phone.
Ideas are traveling.
Yeah, it's like somebody invented the printing press on steroids. And worse, the podcast revolution. I mean, the reason I got involved with this in part was I just couldn't believe that this technology was allowed to exist. It's a nightmare.
So do you think that these groups like Joe Rogan?
I think that they've established an uneasy balance with Joe.
They know he's going to do his thing, but they're frustrated, yet they can't do much.
Well, let's put it this way. Have you ever seen a story where somebody gets shot with a bullet and they don't take the bullet out? Because it's too dangerous to take the bullet out?
Yeah.
Right? So the bullet becomes encapsulated, and it's better just to leave it where it is, lodged. Maybe they wouldn't let Joe Rogan become Joe Rogan now. But to remove him? Then are you going to get Theo Vaughn, filling that slot? Are you going to get Tim Dillon? So in a weird way, I have this feeling that they're not thrilled about Joe Rogan, but they know that what would replace Joe Rogan might be much, much more dangerous. And by the way, when you get canceled, you'll notice that you find yourself changing.
Yeah.
You'll start to self-censor.
Yeah.
And you'll say things like, I'll try to do better. And in part, they teach you and they train you. So you have to think about, what did I actually do that was wrong? And what am I being induced to do because I'm being piled onto? Look, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast changed. I originally wanted to do this podcast because it was India's counterpart. Somehow the Indian market for ideas is underexplored. You have a huge number of people who are very good at English over here. We don't treat India as an Anglophone country. And, there you are up at the top. So immediately I checked you out. But when you got canceled, I got super excited to do the podcast because, it was a brain fart, or shit testing, as the kids say, that, suddenly, it looked bad. It's sort of a thing that you thought of in your brain, you say it, and then you realize after the fact that was a mistake. But then the exaggerated immune response, I have this thing about standing up for people in trouble. And I was super excited to do the show as a result.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. To go back to the start of the episode, we were basically talking about the nature of reality, right? And then we've mentioned it a few times with the dark matter and a bunch of other things, proteins, etc.
Yeah.
This question is going to piss off so many people who hate watch this show.
Okay.
But that's why I love the question even more.
All right.
Do you think ghosts exist?
Do I think ghosts exist? No.
No.
But if they do exist, they would be made out of dark matter for sure.
I'd love to hear more. I'd love to hear more about both these tangents.
Okay. So in terms of ghosts, my feeling about this is that we have needs, and you have to be honest about what your needs are. Life isn't enough. We want more. So we want there to be ghosts. We want there to be like a secret world of dinosaurs under the surface. And we want there to be portals to other dimensions. And we want to be able to call up Krishna and ask for advice and all sorts of stuff. And just wanting those things isn't enough to make them real. And that's one of the lessons of science. So it's not like I don't want to play. It's that I don't want to mess up my only opportunity for true magic. And the true magic is the stuff that allows you to make something that nobody's ever made before, or understand something that nobody's ever understood before. And so I don't believe in ghosts because I think that's a desire.
But do you think that if they do some kind of scientific research where they're able to prove it, you might shift that belief?
I believe there are all sorts of ways I could construct things about life that would be inconceivable. Like dark matter life. That's an inconceivable concept, but it's possible. There are these claims about remote viewers that sound like total nonsense. That somebody is, taken on a submarine to the bottom of the sea where light can't penetrate, and they get a vision of something else. Now, your phone is a remote viewing instrument. If you were in the 1700s and you were communicating by FaceTime with Australia, it would be a miracle. There would be no explanation for it other than, he has magical powers. So science is always magic before it's understood. So I definitely believe in some sense that there are things that we should be able to do. Okay, I think we can forget about ghosts. Here's something I really believe. I believe we can reach the stars, and I believe that it's possible quickly. Nobody agrees with me on this.
Distant star systems.
Yes. I am hopeful. I can't prove it. But my work has been to ask the question, is it possible that maybe this is much easier than we're making it out to be.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this related to wormholes? Like, is your solution related to wormholes?
No. In a certain sense, it's the repudiation of wormholes. It's saying wormholes is a concept of Einstein. And so all of our dreams have been sort of crushed by Einstein because he has this incredible theory that tells us what we can't do. If we can go beyond Einstein, then we can talk about what we can do. So the metaphor that I like to use is pinch to zoom. So if you think about it, if you have a surface like an iPad and you do this, the picture suddenly changes scale. Now before, 2002, 2003, nobody had ever done that before. So whatever image was on your television screen, you couldn't do anything with it. What if nature has pinch to zoom in it? And if you want to go to a distant star, what you should first do is do a motion like this and shrink the apparent distance. Then you do a couple of swipes and then you expand it out.
Reality can be bent that way?
That's what my research is in part about, which is showing that there are these extra degrees of freedom and that it may be that we don't live in space-time at all, so we don't need wormholes, that we might have access to pinch to zoom. So we just don't know it.
If we don't live in space-time, what do we live in?
We live in something called the Observerse, is my claim.
Okay.
So that's my entrant in the horse race to go beyond Einstein is called the Observerse.
So you think that we'd be able to build a device that would be able to pinch?
That's my hope.
But how do you build a device that big? Or do you even need a big device?
Well, see, the problem with all the cool things that we want to do in Einstein's theory of relativity is it requires too much energy.
To be able to travel that fast.
Well, when you got up because you wanted to change the batteries, how did you do that?
Use the energy again from food and sunlight.
Yeah, but what was pulling on the other side? So there's everything that Ranveer has eaten and the sunlight. And then there's an entire planet going in the opposite direction trying to keep you in that chair. And you won. Doesn't make sense. That's so weak. So that means that in order to do something, in order to bend space and time, if you believe you live in an Einsteinian universe, you need more energy than you can possibly imagine because an entire planet's worth of energy isn't enough. So this is the idea that maybe we don't need anything remotely like that. Maybe we can do things that are cheap.
For example?
Pinch to zoom. That maybe I don't know what the cost of pinch to zoom is, but imagine that in a new theory, it's energetically cheap to change the rulers by which we measure the distance to the stars.
Okay, I have a silly question which might actually help with the understanding of these answers.
Please.
You know, when someone says that they study mathematics, I've always questioned what they study specifically.
Okay.
Like, what does the study of mathematics entail? And does it lead you to a better understanding of the universe? Because they say that math is the language of the universe.
Yes, it does lead to a much better understanding of the universe.
That's the end goal.
Yeah. But it's not even the universe of physical things. It's the universe of what is logically possible.
Gotcha.
So it's like our universe and every other universe you could possibly build.
Whenever I've hosted spiritualists on the show, they use the term higher dimensions.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're living in 3D right now. Is the fourth dimension time?
No.
What's the fourth dimension?
So let's think about your tongue. Since we're doing this in India, flavor is very important to us. Now, the famous receptors on your tongue are sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. But you also have a pain receptor. You have a temperature receptor. So you started off with, let's say, 3 dimensions of sweet, salty, and sour. The 4th dimension wasn't time, it was bitter. The 5th dimension was pain. The 6th dimension was heat. So dimensions are just degrees of freedom. If I have an electric guitar and I have treble, mid, bass, reverb, volume, that's 5 dimensions. So you have to understand that to a mathematician, yes, there's a paradigm in which there are 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal dimension, and that's how we build up space-time. But there isn't the 4th dimension.
So you can't...
Well, I've given you 2 examples where the dimensions... Ranveer, you've been very sweet, worried about my delicate Gora tongue, right? And so the thing is that you keep talking about, can you take the spice? So, how do we measure that? We measure that on the Scoville scale. That's a dimension.
Gotcha.
Do you enjoy, Punjabi sweets? Well, that's a question of how sweet, the intensity of the sweetness. These are measured on different dimensions. So we don't have to name the dimensions. We have access to them. And in one problem, you're trying to set the sound levels. In another problem, you're trying to set the taste levels. And then another, you're trying to set the navigation system for interstellar travel.
Okay. This obserververse problem,
Yeah.
is this your main concern in life right now?
Sort of.
What are you up to?
None of your business. No, I'm just kidding. This is the most important thing that I do.
Most of your time goes into this?
No, but it is the most... Look, this is all fun. I'm having a great time. The world is in deep trouble. I'd like to help it.
Okay.
That's true. But there's only one thing I'm doing that changes everything. And whether that's true or that's false has yet to be adjudicated. But I am up to one thing that really, really matters, that makes everything else insignificant by comparison. And that's the observerse. And that's geometric unity. That's this theory. Because otherwise we're trapped here.
So what do you hope for it in the next 10 years, this piece of work?
I hope that it will be seriously examined and found to be correct, and that humanity will work together to try to figure out how to colonize the cosmos. That's really what I'm up to.
Have you hung out with Elon Musk?
No, we interact via messages. Okay. Elon is very mysterious in a way that somehow nobody seems to notice. One of his slogans is ad astra, to the stars, right? But you can't get to the stars using SpaceX because it's a chemical rocket company. So what the heck? He's not investing in physics. He was going to go into a physics grad school. I think he has a physics BA. So there's something very, very strange about Elon, which is that he's focused on getting to the stars. He doesn't seem to have any interest in physicists. And he has a chemical rocket company. What's going on? His real space company, I think, is not SpaceX. It's XAI. It's Grok.
Wow. Let's break this down a little more.
Sure. Look at the logo for Grok. I think it's like a black hole profile. Look at its slogan, to understand the universe. I think he's given up on the corruption of science. He keeps talking about the fact that he doesn't like the term researcher. He believes only in engineers. He's constantly really running down scientists. Now, I don't think he doesn't believe in scientists. I think he thinks that science has gotten corrupted and he doesn't want to deal with it. And I think what he's doing is he's building Grok to do science in a time when humans are too corrupt to be truthful and real.
Could you share some thought bubbles related to the corruption of science?
No, not right now.
You might get into trouble?
No, it's not that. It's just, you want to talk about something inspiring.
Okay, but the world of science is basically corrupt for whatever reason.
In part.
So the research that should be happening for the benefit of humanity may not be happening to its best degree.
Look, a lot of science is not corrupt at all. It's just fine.
Okay.
But the science that will inspire you, that will change your life, that changes everything, is pretty corrupt.
Okay.
Because it's power. You see, you've had, I think, 3 science projects in, roughly speaking, your time change everything. First one is 2009 with Bitcoin, where the Bitcoin white paper creates a currency where nothing like it has ever existed. Amazing. Distributed computing is born. The blockchain comes out of nowhere. Then there's this proposal, I think called diffuse, that says, we could put a furin cleavage site in spike protein in coronavirus. And whatever that is, if that came from a lab, then it shut down planet Earth for 2 years. Killed millions. The third one is that in 2017, there was a paper called Attention is All You Need. And that is the paper that gave rise to the AI revolution. That's what it's like to live through a revolution. You have AI on your phone?
Yeah.
Do you deal with ChatGPT in voice?
Yeah.
It's crazy. You say, hey, write me a limerick. And then you say, no, actually, I want you to do it in Telugu. Then you say, I want you to compare some Mexican dish to some dish from Thailand. We've never had anything that can do this. This is a miracle that happened in our time together. What if we started having all sorts of miracles like that? Then you'd live in a transcendent world, which was a lot like the 20th century.
So this job which was assigned to scientists will now be assigned to artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence.
I don't even think it requires artificial general intelligence or super intelligence. It's already pretty good. This thing I said about Alphafold, if it's that good already, you don't know what's going to come. You may be waiting for it to become like a human, but maybe it doesn't need to be.
So I don't think this is an Elon conspiracy theory conversation going on here.
Yeah.
But effectively, if you're saying that Grok is doing the job that scientists were supposed to do for Elon Musk, could there be a version of Grok that he's using, which is being trained on all the usage of Grok globally? But this version is only accessible to Elon and his core team. And then they're using that to forward science for the sake of all their businesses.
Almost certainly he has a private version of Grok that you and I don't have.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you go to Grok and you ask it to take a photo and turn it into, well, you can ask it from a prompt to create a photo. And then if you ask to animate that photo, it gives you spicy mode, right? And then sometimes it will say, sorry, we can't show you the video you created because the AI moderator says that it's too spicy. I don't think Elon has that toggle switch set for him. That's a proof that he has a private version. And I know that some of the other AI companies have private versions because in part, sometimes they'll return racist answers. Right? And so the researchers have to have a jailbroken copy that's different from the public released one. And that's why Gemini got into trouble, because it kept lying in order to be politically correct.
There's a rumor that Elon's going to announce flying cars soon. Have you heard of this?
I couldn't care less.
You couldn't care about flying cars?
No.
Why?
Because I think look, I have crazier beliefs than this. I believe that maybe Grok already knows stuff.
About?
The universe.
Stuff that could help science.
I think it's possible that Grok already has a fairly complete picture.
Grok is the equivalent of God?
No. No. Look, the rules of science are just the rules. Like, you can know all the rules of chess and you're not necessarily going to be the world's best chess player. There's a difference between knowing the rules, being able to play with the rules, and having the wisdom not to blow yourself up doing. I can teach you enough about chemistry that we could blow all those fingers off of your hands right down to your wrist, You have to be really careful with knowledge. And my feeling is that, see, here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. Grok can read the trash. So you can say, read all the published books that are out there. Okay, well, what about all the books that didn't get published? It can read those too. It can read everything that you throw out. What if the answer is not in the libraries? What if it's in the waste basket?
When you're saying Grok, you also mean the other competitors, right? ChatGPT,
Yeah, but I really
Gemini.
believe Elon is different. Elon, I believe, has a concern that none of the others had. All the other ones read what is done and try to guess the completion of a sentence based on what other people think. What happens when everyone's wrong? Then you don't want it to guess the completion of the sentence based on what everybody...
Grok works differently?
Elon is very... One of the interactions I've had with Elon, and I don't want to say too much, is that Elon cares about not being trapped by groupthink. That's different. Elon knows that he doesn't want Grok to be politically correct. That's why he makes Grok capable of producing pornographic images and videos. He doesn't want it to be safe. He wants it to be able to tell a dirty joke. So you remember Elon being asked about, well, what happens if you lose your advertisers? What did he say? GFY. Elon believes that freedom pays a dividend. And Elon believes that everyone can be wrong and he can be right. And that's why I think he doesn't trust science. And he uses SpaceX to make money and to inspire people to want to colonize different worlds. And it's a giant head fake at the same time. I think Grok is the space program. And so every time I try to talk to him, I say, look, man, you're this rich. You care about physics, clearly. You care about the light of human consciousness not going out. Why don't you throw some loose change and buy physicists, put them in an institute, and do great physics where these people can afford not to listen to their colleagues if groupthink is the problem? And he won't answer. And I think I didn't understand why he wouldn't answer. It's not like he doesn't understand the problem. He doesn't want to get involved in a political conflict about science. He's going to go around the scientists.
He's the one human being that's actually capable of being a supervillain. I hope he doesn't become one. I don't think he'll become a supervillain.
I could be wrong about who he is. I don't know him really.
Fair.
But I think he's the only adult.
The only adult?
Yeah.
In the world?
Yeah.
Because he's got this one superpower called Grok, which is an...
No. He's the only one who's trying to take care of everyone.
Oh, okay. He's
dad.
He's thinking about the future.
He's a badly behaved dad.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. I could make a decent... Look, I think he lies about some stuff. I think he's wrong about stuff. But I think he's the only person who's actually planning for our... You want to know why I think everything's screwed up? Because we lost our indefinite human future. If you think about, like in India and tradition, and the idea that everyone is just a link in a chain and you've got to do your duty, as per the Mahabharata, right? We don't believe that anymore. We don't think that, we intuit that this thing is not going to go on for that long. So why don't we get tattooed? Why don't we just live together before marriage? Why do we have to have children? All of these questions come from the idea that we don't have a future. And Elon is trying to force our future back into our lives.
You think we subconsciously are going towards dystopia, and this is the one human being that's saying, no, hold on.
Yeah.
This is how the human race survives.
Yeah, and partially, exactly. Including the fact that he just doesn't want to be focused on problems all day long. Like, let's have fun. Let's get excited.
So hypothetically, if he has this secret version of Grok, what's he doing with it right now, according to you? He's trying, because it effectively becomes like a really, you've seen Dracula and Igor,
Yeah.
So this becomes like a really smart Igor that helps Dracula, which is Elon Musk.
Okay. My theory of Elon is he's told you exactly what he's doing and no one is really listening. His whole thing is, I'm going to build a bunch of companies. I'm not going to do nonprofits because it needs to be self-sustaining and I don't have enough money to do it as nonprofits. In their early stages, they're going to do some relatively boring thing in a cool way. But the ultimate aim is multi-planetary survival well beyond Mars. The only part of it that's really a lie is Mars.
You think they want to inhabit other planets?
That, for sure, the Moon and Mars are possible with chemical rockets, but they're the only two spheres that are.
Okay, so to get to the other planets, you need higher levels of science.
That's exactly. In other words, engineering can get you to the Moon and to Mars. It can also get you to Titan and Venus, but you're not going to live there. But these robots are going to be the things that are going to build the structure. So the Optimus robot is going to be what he sends to do work in an inhospitable environment.
I've had this theory since I was a kid. We obviously see a lot of garbage in the oceans or beaches or whatever.
Sure.
I always thought that science would reach a point where robotics gets advanced enough for the robots to do this garbage cleaning for us. And I think we're almost there. We're like 5-10 years away, maybe.
I don't know, but Jim Tour would be a good person to talk to. Come to Texas. He does nano machines. Maybe the robots are going to be tiny. You're not going to be able to see them with the naked eye. Because microplastics.
Yeah. I mean, the larger conversation like that's going on in my head here is that AI is advancing in the way that we all know. Robotics is advancing. Robotic butlers seem to be a nearby possibility now. I think robotic butlers are the metaphor for a much larger revolution that's going to happen.
Imagine microscopic airborne micro butlers. No, I'm not kidding.
Like things just float and your coffee cup just floats and arrives in front of you.
Maybe you breathe them and it cleans out your lungs. I mean, you ever seen this old ideas for a washing machine, which it's got a suction cup and a plate, and it goes around like this with an arm? It's nothing like what a washing machine is. Our notion of a robot is ridiculously like us. I think when we think robots, we don't think protein level machines.
Gotcha. They could be biological. They could be really tiny.
Waterborne, airborne. They could be virtual.
Small, tangent away from this. This is why I want to be in America and I want to run my show in America. Because people who are at the cutting edge of these things are sitting in America.
Sure. And this is in part why I want to come to India.
Why?
Because nobody has fully tapped what's here.
You think the subject experts are here as well?
No. I think that the brains are here, but that they're so focused on the wrong things. It's a little bit like tapped oil fields versus fresh oil fields. So in the US, most resources get tapped. And in India, you're sitting on vast quantities of
intellectual
of neurons.
Yeah.
And India can't get out of its own way. So the idea is there's much more oil and gold under the ground, metaphorically, in India. So I think a lot about unlocking India.
I love what you said about how he's probably using that cowboy version of Grok to build out the scientific future of humankind to fuel his personal dream, which is interplanetary travel beyond just Mars and the moon.
It should be everyone's. I think he's totally mystified why he's the only person on this kick.
What other locations in our solar system?
They're not in our solar system.
Okay. Gotcha.
This is why pinch to zoom, the observer's science. He and I have two different ideas how to go about it. I am in a race with Elon Musk. And I'm happy if either one of us win. I don't really care. But I don't know of anyone else who cares about this topic. So to me, okay, I'll say something crazy.
Yeah.
Clearly, the most important problem on planet Earth is getting out of the solar system as fast as possible.
Why is it the most important problem?
Because we're all going to die here soon. And I don't want it to be depressing.
How soon?
Pretty soon.
Because of what?
Because we developed thermonuclear weapons in November of 1952, and we haven't used them yet against each other. And the order that keeps those things from being used just broke down in January of 2025 with Donald Trump's repudiation of the post-World War II responsibilities of the United States. You should be very, very aware of what that means. When J.D. Vance went to Europe and said, "You're on your own, guys."
You think we'll see a nuclear bomb explode in the next 10 years?
You have no idea how much closer we got to that. And by the way, you guys have really good seats with your neighbors to the north.
It might happen here.
What was that in Kashmir? What the heck was that? Are they mad?
Has this narrative reached the world?
Everybody's lost their mind, Ranveer.
Hmm.
I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what Elon's doing. I don't really know what anybody else is doing.
So you're saying that the main problem to be solved for the human race in the 2020s is to figure out...
spread out. We are all of us are eggs in one basket called Earth. And it's not the land masses that matter. It's the atmosphere. We all share an atmosphere. There's no such thing as the Indian atmosphere and the United States atmosphere. It's all one atmosphere.
You know, I'm visualizing our great-grandchildren coming back to the earth and going like, this is so beautiful. Why did you leave?
Why did you screw it up?
Why did you screw it up?
Why'd you screw it up?
Because it'll be a ball of fire at that point.
Look, man, I came to Bombay and I couldn't see it.
Mm.
And then the other day it was very, very clear. But how is it that it looks like Delhi? Atmosphere carries three things that matter: pathogens, radiation, and climate. And we can't afford to all share an atmosphere.
Let's go back to the scientific discovery thing
Yeah,
again.
sure.
Because a lot of the things we're speaking about are related to scientific discovery. So before the world of AI, this is what I understand, that scientists were given different problems to solve or chose different problems to solve. And then it takes about 50 years-ish for the engineers to catch up and figure out the application.
It really depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
But it takes some time.
It takes some time.
But because of artificial superintelligence or even the AI we have now,
Right.
scientific discovery and engineering have become quicker.
Hard to say. People keep looking to organize this stuff. If you think that in 1902 we just get powered flight with the Wright brothers, and before the century is out, we send a probe to Saturn's moon, Titan, and land and send back a picture. Unbelievable. As I always tell people, it's 10,000 years between 1902 and 1952. And except for computers, there's barely any time at all between 1975 and now. And it's the same 50-year time stretch. Everything happened in the first half of the 20th century. It was crazy. Tons of miracles. All this understanding. I have an aunt who just turned 100 this year. Shout out to Aunt Judy. She's older than the neutron. Can you believe it?
Like, you're saying science has become exponentially faster than it's ever been in the history of humankind.
It was until around 1970, and it runs into this strange slowdown.
Caused by the Illuminati?
No.
Caused by the deep state?
I don't think so. I don't know, though.
It just slowed down.
Well, there was a guy. Look,
There was a?
I want everything to be entertaining enough for your audience. There's a guy named Derek DeSola Price who predicted that it was going to collapse.
What does that mean?
In the 1950s, a guy plotted every indication of how fast science was going, and it was all going off exponentially. And he said, look, an exponential can't be continued. It grows too quickly. So he predicted in the 1950s that we were going to get this massive scientific stagnation in a book called Science Since Babylon. So India, if you're still a nation of readers, which you seem to be because you have lots of bookstores and bookstalls and libraries and things, go find an old book called Science Since Babylon. It'll rock your world.
But what was the logic of it slowing down?
That every person, in order for science to keep continuing on an exponential, every human being would need to get 4 PhDs before very long.
Okay, to keep the speed going.
Then the amount of money would collapse the world's economy. if you look at, for example, how much it takes to put more energy into a particle accelerator, the particle physicists keep saying things like our next particle accelerator should be as big as the solar system.
Okay, I'm just going to simplify what you said.
Yeah.
I think I got what you said. You're saying that basically to keep science going at that same speed, you need a lot more horsepower and or human power.
You need resources, man. You need people, you need money, you need energy, and there was no way to keep it going.
Until AI has become this good.
Well, maybe now AI allows you to go back on an exponential.
So from 1970 to 2024-ish, things slowed down and now things are going to pick up again.
Sometime in the early 70s and sometime around now, it's been pretty slow except for computers.
Tiny conspiracy theory tangent.
Let's go.
Tesla.
What about it?
Do you think Tesla discovered...
Tesla the man.
Yeah, Tesla the man.
Okay.
Do you think Tesla the man discovered a lot more?
I don't.
Do you think what all his scientific discoveries were published?
No, look, I don't love the Tesla conspiracy, but I have my own conspiracy.
Which is?
I think one of my biggest concerns is that the United States used two gentlemen as a proxy for the U.S. government. One was named Roger Babson. The other was named Agnew Bainson. They were both rich, and they funded anti-gravity projects. And that led to something called the golden age of general relativity. And I think that's one of the most mysterious aspects of current physics and science history. It was like the Manhattan Project. So if you think about the Manhattan Project, it was a conspiracy. You take all these smart people, you put them in a boys' school in the middle of New Mexico. They're working on the ultimate doomsday weapon. And the U.S. learned how to do a great science conspiracy. That was a great science conspiracy. I think that they may have done one after that.
Which years was this in, roughly?
Los Alamos was like 1942 to 45 or something like that, 41 to 45.
Okay.
And that resulted in the atomic bomb.
No. The anti-gravity one.
Would be around 1952 to 1973.
What do you mean by an anti-gravity project?
What if the U.S. federal government decided that we needed to engineer gravity? You see, we know how to engineer. We have four forces. We have electromagnetism, gravity, the weak force, and the strong force. So you and I are able to put out a podcast because we know how to engineer with one of those forces called electromagnetism. That's what provides the light. That's what flips the magnetic particles on the materials that store the episode. In 1945, we got access to the strong force together with electromagnetism, and we blew up two Japanese cities called Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then in 1952, we learned how to fuse rather than cleave atoms. And we got further access to the strong force. Okay, so that leaves two forces. We have never shown that we know how to do gravitational engineering nor weak force engineering. You would imagine that a government would think that. I would imagine that India and Pakistan and Russia and China have thought this. But I would imagine that between 1952 and around 1973, the U.S. government probably had a special access program that resulted in the golden age of general relativity. That was its public face. And the private face was probably to see whether or not there were national interest applications.
Explain this in sci-fi terms.
We tried to warp space and time.
A time machine.
We tried to do something inconceivable to see whether it was possible. We did this in part through a company called Glenn L. Martin, which became Martin Marietta, which became Lockheed Martin. So the Martin after Lockheed is, I think, where we did it. I think we did it in Baltimore, Maryland, at a place called the Research Institute for Advanced Study, which almost no one has ever heard of unless they listen to me and now Jesse Michaels.
But do you think that's what it was, a time machine?
I think they were trying to do gravitational space-time engineering.
So they were trying to bend space-time.
Look, these guys had just unleashed the power of the sun. I think India was trying to do this. I think that the reason that the Tata Institute for Fundamental Research dates from 1952 is that India figured it needed to get on the thermonuclear bandwagon ASAP. And I don't think that India recognizes that South Bombay, Navy Nagar, is the birthplace of quantum gravity. Nobody knows this.
Yeah, this is the first time hearing about this.
Because you've all gone mad and everybody's forgotten everything and no one knows how to think. And so anybody who does is treated like a lunatic. Yeah. I think that the most beautiful place in Bombay is TIFR, and it is the birthplace of quantum gravity. And a guy named Bryce DeWitt and his wife Cecile DeWitt Moret took a postdoc here and had their child here. And 1952 is the exact start date of when India got super serious about physics. And that's why you guys are the blinding outpost of genius in this region.
Why do you think they didn't talk about that particular government project related to the time machine?
Whoever gets there first, it's like Los Alamos all over again. How long did the U.S. have the atomic bomb with no one else having an atomic bomb? I want you just to think about it like this. You have four forces. There was a horse race with respect to electromagnetism. You know, Michael Faraday, James Clerk Maxwell. I have to imagine that the British Empire got a lot of power out of being first in that race. Then you had a race with the strong force, and the United States got there first. But the Soviet Union had a spy inside of our conspiracy. Our conspiracy was called the Manhattan Project. It took place at Los Alamos at a boys' school. And it created an engineering product that was delivered to Japan. And then in 1952, it was upgraded to 2.0 with the Teller-Ulam devices that ushered in the thermonuclear era. You've got two more forces, ladies and gentlemen. Do you really think the governments just said, okay, enough? I don't. I think it would be madness to consider that they were that dumb.
I love these little anecdotes where science meets history and also meets the future.
And meets India. I'm not kidding around. You know, this is a serious, serious place.
As a scientist, do you think they would have figured how to time travel?
Do I think that they did? No.
You don't think it went anywhere?
I wouldn't say that. I don't think that they succeeded in their ultimate goal. I think that the secret program existed. I can tell you that I think it involved John Archibald Wheeler, Bryce DeWitt, Richard Feynman, Desser, Arnowit, Freeman Dyson. I can tell you the names. I can tell you the places. I can tell you that I think that they created two what are called cutouts, sort of government organizations that are represented by front companies or people, you know. So I think Jeffrey Epstein is an example of a cutout. But I think that the two cutouts were Roger Babson and Agnew Bainson, and that they funded the golden age of general relativity. And it's right out there in the open. And it's just that people are unaware of how special access programs work.
Maybe Elon will open it again with his cowboy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Well, Elon's funny because he doesn't seem to be a member of the club.
Of a secret society.
Well, did you notice the way that they snubbed him at the electric vehicle summit on the White House lawn? They invited everyone other than Tesla Motors. I think Elon's got a totally different strategy. I think Elon is the most American guy I know. He's a cowboy. He's going to go it alone. And if it kills him, and the man's willing to take his life in his own hand. He's willing to lose all of his money. Where
does this leave Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman?
I don't know. I think everybody's too worried about money and balance sheets. And Elon has to worry about that or he doesn't get to keep playing. But there's a question about courage and learning how to ignore everyone and the scorn of every last human being on earth. And I think that only Elon has that. I think Mark's, I don't know Mark at all. I know Sam decently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's it like hanging out with him?
Sam's very neurodivergent, very smart, and very fun. Love talking to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sam and Peter Thiel are sort of people who, if they were academicians, I think would probably be first tier. They're very strange human beings in a really positive and good way. I know Dario a little bit from before. Again, super intelligent human being. But again, I think it's a little bit, if I can just make a complaint, why do we keep representing these companies by their CEOs? When I told you that, this paper, Attention is All You Need, is the thing that changed the AI world forever. There were 8 names on that paper, and we don't know any of them, except we know the names of the CEOs of the company where the paper was written. So I think that in some sense, I'm just going to say it's time for the CEOs to stop eclipsing all of their scientists and all of their researchers. We need to know the names of the people inside the companies doing the work.
All my podcasts.
Yeah.
I just ask the questions that are flashing in my head.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask you one of those.
All right.
It's not completely related to what we're speaking about.
All right.
We had the ISRO chairman on the show a year ago. And he was very open about the fact that he believes in the existence of aliens and in the fact that aliens are probably present among us in human society. Kind of like a very Men in Black plot.
Okay.
He didn't believe in the Men in Black plot, but he believed in the fact that aliens exist in society along with us.
Huh.
Which brings me to my next conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Do you believe in this reptilian leaders conspiracy?
No.
But do you believe that aliens are present among us?
Maybe. But not as like, that engineer over there or this waiter or no.
He moves different. Scratches himself. No?
Have you heard my North Sentinel Island theory?
No, but go on.
Okay. So there's this island in the Andaman Nicobar chain, which has a bunch of people on it who don't know they're Indians. Because the island is claimed by India, but India won't let anyone land there.
You think the Earth is a North Sentinel Island?
Correct. And I think that we're Indians in a galactic sense, and we don't know what India is. So you know the history of North Sentinel Island?
Yeah.
What do you know about it?
What's told to us here is that they're like a time capsule of how humankind used to be.
I believe there was a guy who was active and maybe buggered the natives and was not being... There's some history of contact in the region.
They're very private. And if you go close to North Sentinel Island, they start attacking. That's what is told to like every Indian.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's even as true as it's claimed.
So you think they...
I believe that there are 2 things about this story that need to be checked out. And again, if I'm wrong, it's okay.
Sure.
One, I believe that there is a story of contact between, I think, the British and people in the Andaman and Nicobar chain. And whether the North Sentinelese or not, I don't know. And 2, I think that there are actually videos of them behaving in a non-hostile fashion with the exchange of coconuts, which aren't native to the island or something like that. So you can check me out. But it is in general the case that they treat people who land on the island as if they're hostile. We don't know what their language is. We don't know how many of them there are. We don't know how they live. But yet India claims it. I think there's a significant possibility that we are the North Sentinelese and that we sent a message when we exploded the atomic weapons that we're getting ready to leave.
Ooh, okay.
I think that very shortly before you crack the code of the universe, one of the last acts is that you set off an atomic weapon. And I think that something in the universe might know that.
I'm curious about what 2045 will be like, because it'll mark 100 years. Would we be...
Remember what I said about there were 10,000 years between 1902 and 1952? I think things could accelerate very quickly, very soon.
And you say that as a scientist?
Yeah. I say that very much as a scientist. I think that what I already believe about the universe is that there's not that much left to figure out. Not at the level of, There are an infinite number of puzzles, but in terms of the rules of the universe, the physical rules, I think we're almost at the end. And then I think that we're going to accelerate very, very quickly when we get the last pieces.
Have you ever explored the concept of time travel through the theoretical work that you studied? And is time travel possible theoretically?
So I am obsessed with this question. In fact, I don't even think it's the right question. It's times travel.
Because there's multiple timelines.
Yeah. In other words, in only in a world in which time has one dimension allocated to it can you talk about time travel. There is no arrow of time if there are two dimensions of time. And I believe that in total, there are either 5 or 7 dimensions of time. So in other words, there are either 4 or 6 additional dimensions of time that we don't know anything about.
You mean 4 or 6 additional timelines?
No. I mean that every dimension in physics has to be allocated to either being space-like or time-like. So if you ever read a book called Flatland, it's a book in which there are 2 dimensions of space, right? And so you can think about, if you're in New York, you can think about streets versus avenues. So the streets are one kind of hash, and then perpendicular to them are avenues. You can be on 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue. You can be on 54th, 53rd, 56th Street.
It's like the world of an ant.
The world of an ant. But now, if you get to a very tall building that might be at the corner in some city of, 53rd Street and 2nd Avenue, you can ask, what floor should I meet you on? The 11th floor? The 56th floor? That's another dimension. So that would be another spatial dimension. So if you've never seen a high-rise building, it might confuse you that you have to specify the floor that you're supposed to meet at. Okay. So that's what an additional spatial dimension is like. What happens if there are additional temporal dimensions? We can't even think about this.
What is it, temporal?
Time-like dimension.
Okay.
So you're not that old, sir, but you might have run across a cassette tape. Have you ever? Yeah. So if you play a cassette tape way back when, and you got to the end and you want to go back to your favorite song, you have to go back through every single song in order to play it. So that's what we mean by time travel. Can you go back in time? Can you go back through the cassette tape of things that happened? But if you had a record player and you had a stylus on a phonograph, you could just pick it up, not play the other songs in reverse, and put the needle wherever you wanted to begin.
Gotcha.
So that's like multiple dimensions so that you don't have to play through everything. Well, what if in time, imagine you're in a dog fight and you're about to get killed and you hit some button and suddenly you loop back in time to go to the place that you want to be without playing back through time. So I believe you'll be able potentially to go back in time without going back through time.
Gotcha.
And therefore it's times travel.
Usually the way people visualize time travel is that from 2025, they'll first go to 24, 23. And what you're saying is you can directly go to 1995 or 1810 or wherever.
Or wherever by going into these 4 or 6, it has to be, in my opinion, either 4 or 6 additional dimensions of time.
This is what the mathematics indicates about possible time travel.
Exactly.
Now it's up to Elon and Cowboy Grok to figure.
No. I'm racing these guys and I'll
Really?
stay in the... Yeah. No, look. When you invite a crazy person on your show...
I love it.
Yeah. You have to understand what motivates them. What motivates me is I want us all to go on forever. I want our children, our descendants, I want our species to evolve, not to go extinct, right?
This is also related to your obserververse angle?
Yeah, the Observerse
Observers.
has 10 additional dimensions that we don't recognize. 4 of them are going to be spatial and 6 of them temporal, or 6 of them are going to be spatial and 4 of them temporal. Those are the only 2 possibilities. It's set by the mathematics.
And the use case for the observers is that you'll be able to jump
You'll be able to do all this stuff I was talking about with pinch to zoom.
You'll be able to go from one star system to another one very easily.
Well, potentially. Again, non-science people always want to get to like, let's get to the engineering case. Science people have to tell you guys, no, don't do that. It's a guess about what the world actually is before it's an engineering plan. But there's no way you're going to go to these star systems using current science. So the hope is that new science opens up possibilities that will make your head spin.
I've always wanted to ask a scientist who's still active about what they feel about these advancements in AI. And I think you've indirectly answered that question through the course of this
I have
conversation.
someone to talk to now that doesn't exist.
That'll help you solve the problem quickly.
It's not that. I have no idea what happened around here. It's like the world got stupid. If you take COVID, the most obvious guess in the world is that this came out of a lab in Wuhan, China. And everyone that I knew who said, clearly we have to put this on the table, was told that they were a lunatic, that they were a conspiracy, that they lost their mind. We need to get the national interest infrastructure, the intelligence communities, the hell out of science. They're ruining science. Look, of course there are conspiracies, you idiots. We literally have names for the kinds of conspiracies you come up with. Are you really going to just keep destroying the career of everyone who tries to figure something out because you don't want Tony Fauci to be responsible? Come on, man. Tony Fauci was almost certainly a bioweapons czar. He wasn't the kindly doctor who was trying to cure your allergies. We're being made to live in a fairy tale, Ranveer. That's what's going on. And in the fairy tale, if you try to break out of the fairy tale, you're called names. You've been through a version of this. Now, to be fair, I haven't done the thing that you did, which was to say something stupid like that. I kept my nose clean. I did all the right things, and I expected the right to be able to say things like, obviously, we have to look whether the Wuhan Institute of Virology caused the problem with American help. But nobody wants to talk about, how many million people died from COVID. So we're not allowed to do science. Well, F that, We have to be able to do science, and the national interest people need to get the hell out of the way.
Do you ever think about what the Chinese government feels when they download this kind of information on these kind of podcasts from people like yourself, or when they observe what Elon Musk is up to? What are Chinese labs up to right now?
China's going to eat all of our lunch. China hasn't lost its mind, which makes me think that in part China may be inducing some of the madness through TikTok or who knows what.
Yeah.
Because China isn't as chaotic and disorderly as the rest of us. So I'm worried that China and Russia and some other actors are messing around in our ability to think. But I definitely believe the United States is doing this, and I wish we would stop. And this is one of the reasons for the importance of other centers. Like, I want Australia and Canada and the UK to go in different directions. We can't all afford to go crazy around here. That's the issue.
Do you think the moon has secrets that we're not told?
Well, this is what Chaim Eshed keeps telling us. So that the head of the Israeli space program, as I understand it, believes that we have bases on Mars and on the moon where we meet with people.
Meet with beings.
Beings.
This is another conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds ridiculous, don't you think?
I mean, I don't know what's ridiculous.
Okay, so that's the thing. It sounds ridiculous to me.
Okay.
But on the other hand, what's going on is so completely ridiculous that you have to think, why are so many smart, sober people saying things that are so crazy? And I don't know which of them is completely insane. I think there's a lot of disinformation in the system.
So there are some conspiracy theories that are actually just conspiracies. And there's some that could contain
I think some
truth.
of them are seeded by... Look, if you're going to try to smuggle a needle, you're going to want a haystack. So if I had some truth that I was going to try to stop from being understood, I might not be able to keep the truth from getting out. But I'd probably come up with 1,000 different theories, and then you'd never know what was true. And that's why I asked you, well, do you think that this is credible? I don't know what to believe. Okay, well, that's the goal. Every time that they get you to throw up your hands. Look, when I say to you something, which is, I'm very happy being on this show and saying there will be found to be 4 or 6 extra dimensions of time. That's very specific. Now, I know that because that's in my calculations. I know that because I can see it on the page. I have no idea what to make of some guy in Israel making some ridiculous claim that makes no sense, but who seems to be very, very senior. I know that code didn't make any sense. And I can tell you as a scientist, no scientist starts by taking things off of the table. Our first act was to say, it's crazy to imagine that the Wuhan Institute of Virology might be at the heart of the Wuhan pandemic. That's a tell. It's like, somebody's just saying, the one thing we know is that you shouldn't look right there. Of course, everybody's going to look right there. So you want to know what it's really like to be a scientist in the age of AI. At least I can talk to Grok.
Because of what you've studied with respect to quantum theory.
Yeah.
Have you ever pondered upon the existence of God?
Yeah.
So what do you think God is?
It depends. If I gave you the answer, you wouldn't be happy with it because you have a different idea of what God is.
I want to hear what you say.
I think you're going to be unhappy with it,
No,
but let's give it a shot.
There's no unhappiness.
Okay.
Like I could have sat and debated that ghost thing with you if I really wanted to, but I'm here to access your mind during the time that I have with you.
I appreciate that. I don't know what to assign. And let me use the Jewish name, Hashem. Shem means name, Ha means the. So we just say the name.
Hashem.
There are different things that Hashem could be to me. One thing Hashem could be is 4 degrees of freedom and a prescription for self-actualizing the multiverse, the observerse, universe, whatever you want to call it. Hashem could be a consciousness that brought those 4 degrees of freedom into being. Hashem could be nothing at all. Hashem could be something that communicates through the consequences of those 4 degrees of freedom. But my life's work has been to ask, how could you get all of this, the miracle of this conversation, out of the assumption that there were simply 4 degrees of freedom to begin with? That treble, mid, bass, and reverb are enough to create everything you've ever loved, every emotion you've ever felt, every hope, every dream, every life form, every star that you've looked up at, lying on your back during a meteor shower. And it's been to take Hashem seriously, to treat it abstractly the way Muslims and Jews tend to, which is to say, I don't want to say too much. Hinduism is very multi-level. You can access it at every level of sophistication. Same thing with Christianity. But there's a particularly depictive version that says, okay, this is, an avatar where Hashem is an abstraction. And we don't tend to, we say that, maybe God was interested in making man in his own image, whatever that means. I think it's really 4 degrees of freedom. I think that really all you need is 4 degrees of freedom to birth everything that you see in this room and in this world. And I think that miracle has been what I've been trying to do with my life.
What's the 4 degrees of freedom?
They don't have any name. They're not time and space by the time I'm talking about. They're before that. You ever see somebody get pregnant from a in vitro fertilization from IVF, and they'll show you a picture of a bunch of eggs that got implanted? At some point, you and I started life as fertilized eggs. How did that happen? Some egg gets fertilized and divides and divides and divides, and suddenly you're here with thoughts, and I have different ones, and we have speech. That is a miracle beyond all miracles. But the point is, the fertilized egg auto-catalyzed a human being in some sense. The 4 degrees of freedom are like a fertilized egg. That's what produces the majesty and mystery of everything.
the universe began with the Big Bang?
No.
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 What did the universe begin with?
4 degrees of freedom. The Observerse begins with 4 degrees of freedom. You're asking me because I'm your guest, so I'm not giving you the Neil deGrasse Tyson answer. I'm giving you what I believe is true, is that this structure began with 4 degrees of freedom that cannot be explained.
Your higher level math points towards 4 variables. That's why you call it the 4 degrees of freedom?
You would know them later as X, Y, Z, and T, where T is time. Remember where you asked me the 4, is time the 4th dimension?
Gotcha.
So this is before they get their labels.
Okay. And this is a scientific concept,
Yes.
what you speak of.
Yes, we would say a 4-dimensional manifold.
Wow. So one of them is time.
No.
One of them is T.
Begin before they get their labels.
Hmm.
You see, you could have gotten X, Y, T1 and T2, where there's no Z, but they're 2 dimensions of time. Or you could have said, I'm going to call X, Y, and Z T1, T2, and T3, 3 dimensions of time, and I'm going to have only 1 dimension of space, and in that world, space will function as time. In other words, the problem that we're having is, normally speaking, we don't actually talk what our scientific beliefs are with a podcaster. We just say what everyone always says, and it's boring as hell. What I'm trying to tell you is it could have been 2 dimensions of time, 2 dimensions of space. Could have been 4 dimensions of space. We'd be frozen. This is before time and space get their form. You think, if you read the Judeo-Christian Bible, you have to separate the heaven from the earth. You separate the light from the darkness. You separate man from woman. Okay, well, something separated those 4 degrees of freedom later into time and space. And it chose 1 and 3. So one possibility, what Hashem is it's the thing that took 4 degrees of freedom that weren't present, created them, separated 3 from 1, and then let this miracle of bootstrapping work the way a fertilized egg becomes a human being. It's all pretty mind-blowing because we don't think in these terms. But again, I'm the only person who believes this hook, line, and sinker, but I think I'm right.
I've read some parallel things in Hindu philosophy. And
Tell me.
In India, we as a country like to believe that a lot of globally renowned scientists have turned to Indian scripture at some point, or at least it's a narrative that we get. I don't know how true that is. Somewhat true.
Yeah, Buddhism and Hinduism are frequently sought when people get frustrated with the Abrahamic vision because we want different perspectives. But look, these are the deep wells of archetype. If you went back to like a Jordan Peterson version of it, it's worth knowing what the wells, like the what is it? Brahman and Atman, like this division between the instantiation of something and the well of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
At some point in the future, I would love to do a whole Hindu philosophy episode with you.
Love it.
These kind of conversations are the reason I started this job.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. This is what I live for. This is not work. I don't care how this episode performs. This was just one of the most stimulating evenings I've ever had.
You took so much pressure off my shoulders with that. Thank you very much.
I mean, honestly, Dr. Weinstein, I'm really sorry if this episode doesn't do too well. This was just for me.
I'd come out if there were only 3 people who were listening.
Yeah. I don't know how it was for you because I don't know how it was for you. I don't know the kind of minds you're exposed to. This was literally me just sitting and learning from you.
Oh, it was great fun and fantastic.
It was all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hope to speak to you many, many more times in the future.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me on,
Yes,
Ranveer.
thank you so much. And just looking forward to feeding you some great Indian food now.
Let's get to it.
Thank you, doctor. Thanks.